In a quiet American town where nothing bad ever happens, a fight between two children tears open a deadly secret. When a husband turns up dead and the wife swears she's innocent, one determined detective digs past the fences and lies to uncover a truth that someone is willing to kill for. Asterisk, asterisk, cracks in the fence, a story where childhood rivalry sparks murder and every neighbor hides something behind their smile. I still remember the sound that started it all, the sharp, panicked cry of a child from next door, slicing through the calm of a late summer afternoon. It was one of those lazy days in Pine Hollow, the kind of small American town where everyone thought they knew everyone else. We had the same church, the same diner, and the same gossip, but behind those freshly painted fences, quiet resentments simmered like embers waiting for wind. That cry came from the miller's backyard. When I stepped onto my porch, I saw my son, Ethan, standing stiff as a board by the fence, his cheeks red and fists clenched. Across from him, little Tommy Miller was wailing, clutching his arm where a red mark was blooming. "Ethan," I shouted, rushing down the porch steps. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Mom," Ethan yelled back, tears already filling his eyes. He pushed me first. Before I could say more, the sliding door of the Miller's house flew open. Sarah Miller stormed out, her blonde hair pulled back tight, her face flushed with anger. "What the hell, Laura?" she snapped. "Your kid hit mine." I froze mid-step. He said Tommy pushed him. "Oh, please," she cut in, gathering Tommy up like a wounded soldier. "You've got to teach your kid some manners before someone really gets hurt." Her tone burned worse than her words. We'd been polite neighbors for years, trading small talk over the fence and swapping baked goods during holidays. But lately, things had changed. Since her husband, Rick, got laid off from the lumber mill, Sarah had been tense, angry. Still, I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Let's just calm down, okay? They're kids. They fight and make up in an hour. Not if they're taught to be violent." She muttered, then turned and went inside, slamming the door hard enough to rattle my porch railing. Ethan sniffled beside me. "I didn't hit him, Mom, I swear." I sighed, rubbing his shoulder. "I believe you, honey, but let's stay away from the Millers for a while, okay?" He nodded, but the shame in his small face broke my heart. That night, I stood by the kitchen window, the glow from the Miller's house flickering through the blinds. I could hear them arguing, loud, sharp voices. Sarah's voice rose above the rest. Rick's deep rumble followed, hard and angry. For a moment, I thought about calling the sheriff. But in Pine Hollow, you didn't call the cops for a domestic argument. You pretended not to hear. Over the next week, things only got worse. Sarah stopped saying hello. Her trash cans were accidentally blocking my driveway one morning. My mail went missing. Ethan came home from school quiet, saying Tommy wouldn't talk to him anymore, that he'd told other kids Ethan was mean, like his mom. By Friday, even the air between our houses felt thick. That evening, while watering my small patch of petunias, I saw Rick Miller standing by the fence. He looked different, hon. Kempt eyes dull, holding a beer bottle that was nearly empty. "Hey, Rick," I said carefully. He nodded without looking at me. "Kids fight, huh?" "Yeah," I said, "they do." He took a long swig, still staring at the fence. "Sarah's been saying we should move. Says this neighborhood's gone bad." I managed a weak laugh. "It's Pine Hollow, Rick. Nothing bad ever happens here." He gave a crooked smile. "Yeah, not yet." The words lingered longer than they should have. That night, I couldn't sleep. Through my window, I could see the Miller house again, only one light on in their kitchen. I saw Sarah's shadow move past the blinds. Then another figure joined her, taller, heavier. There was shouting, then silence. I told myself it was none of my business, but something deep inside me, that low, humming instinct you can't reason with, told me that silence was the start of something terrible. I should have listened to it. The scream came 3 nights later. It was just past midnight when it shattered the quiet of Pine Hollow. At first, I thought it was an animal, a coyote maybe, but then I heard my name. "Laura, somebody help." It was Sarah Miller. I stumbled out of bed, pulling on my robe, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Outside, the streetlights bathed the cul-de-sac in a dull orange glow. I saw Sarah standing in her front yard, barefoot, shaking, her hands smeared with something dark. Blood. "Sarah," I called, rushing toward her. "What happened?" She turned to me, her face pale as paper. "It's Rick. Oh, God, Laura, he's..." She couldn't finish. Her voice cracked and broke into sobs. I ran past her, through the open front door, and froze the moment I stepped into the living room. Rick Miller was lying on the floor beside the couch, eyes open, staring at nothing. A pool of blood spread beneath his head, seeping into the beige carpet. A broken whiskey bottle lay near his hand, and a wooden baseball bat rested against the wall, streaked with something dark and sticky. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Sarah, what did you—" "I didn't do it," she screamed. He was drunk again. I went to the kitchen, and when I came back, he was just like this. I looked around. The coffee table was overturned. A chair had been knocked over. There were pieces of glass everywhere. Some part of me wanted to believe her, but another part, the quiet, observant part, was already cataloging details. The bat wasn't on the floor near him. It had been placed carefully against the wall. That was no accident. Within minutes, the wail of sirens cut through the night air. Pine Hollow wasn't used to chaos, so the sheriff's department arrived, fast lights flashing, tires crunching over gravel. The small crowd of curious neighbors began to form, their bathrobes glowing under porch lights. That's when Detective Claire Harlow arrived. She wasn't from around here, you could tell right away. She had that clean, city edge about her, dark blazer over jeans, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, and a way of scanning the scene like she'd seen it all before. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Who found the body?" she asked. "I did," Sarah whispered. "I called for help." "And you are Sarah Miller, his wife?" Detective Harlow nodded, jotting something in her notepad. Then her eyes landed on me. "And you are Laura Price," I said, "her neighbor. I came when I heard her scream." She studied me a moment longer than I liked. Then she nodded toward the doorway. "Ma'am, I'll need you to stay available for questioning." The next few hours blurred together, flashing lights, photographs, murmurs between officers. Ethan peeked from our window once, scared and pale, before I sent him back to bed. By dawn, the coroner had taken Rick's body, and the once quiet Miller home had become a tape-off crime scene. I didn't sleep. When morning came, Detective Harlow knocked on my door. "MS Price," she said, her tone polite but firm. "Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?" "Of course," I said, trying to steady my voice. She stepped inside, her notepad already open. "You and Mrs. Miller, were you close?" "Neighbors, mostly." I said, "Our kids used to play together, but there's been tension lately." "What kind of tension?" I hesitated. "A few arguments. The kids fought. She thought my son was bullying hers. It wasn't true." Harlow scribbled something down. "Did you ever witness any violence between Mr. and Mrs. Miller?" "Yes," I admitted. "I heard them arguing several times, mostly at night. I thought about calling the police once." "Did you see or hear anything last night, before the scream?" I shook my head, then frowned. "Actually, earlier that evening I saw a truck parked near their house. Dark blue old Ford, I think. I didn't recognize it." She looked up sharply. "You're sure it wasn't one of the neighbors?" "I've lived here 7 years. I know everyone's car." Harlow's pen paused. "That's helpful, thank you." As she turned to leave, her eyes fell on something near my window, a small muddy footprint on the sill. She crouched, studying it. "Looks like somebody came close to your house last night," she murmured. A chill ran down my spine. "You think whoever killed Rick might have come here?" I asked. "It's possible," she said, "or maybe they were watching." That word "watching" stuck in my mind long after she left. Over the next 2 days, Pine Hollow buzzed with rumors. Some said Sarah killed Rick in a fit of rage. Others whispered that Rick had enemies from his old job at the lumber mill men. He'd crossed over unpaid money. Detective Harlow kept to herself, moving quietly between houses, asking questions, taking notes. She interviewed Ethan, too gently, respectfully, and I saw the way she watched me when she left, as if filing away more than she said aloud. By Friday, The police called Sarah in for further questioning. She didn't come back that night. Her house stood dark, still sealed with yellow tape. And then, late that evening, as I was washing dishes, I noticed something strange. In the reflection of my kitchen window, I saw movement outside, a shadow slipping past my fence near the miller's side yard. My heart froze. I turned off the lights and moved to the window quietly. Under the moonlight, a figure crouched near the fence, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket. He seemed to be digging at something by the bushes. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the sheriff, but before I could, the man straightened up and looked directly toward my window. Even from a distance, I could see his eyes glint under the porch light. Cold, intentional, then he disappeared into the darkness. That night, sleep didn't come at all. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was a warning. The next morning, Pine Hollow was drenched in fog. It rolled down the hills like smoke, swallowing fences, mailboxes, and the few scattered oaks that lined our street. The whole town felt hushed, like it was holding its breath. I hadn't slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind outside felt like footsteps creeping closer. I kept seeing that shadow near the fence, tall, deliberate, watching. At 8 a.m., someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, Detective Claire Harlow stood there, looking like she hadn't slept either. Her blazer was wrinkled, her expression unreadable. "Morning, Ms. Price," she said. "We need to talk." I stepped aside. "Did you find something?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled a small evidence bag from her pocket. Inside was a thin silver bracelet, half covered in dried mud. "Recognize this?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "That's Sarah's. She used to wear it all the time." "We found it buried near your fence line," Harlow said, "along with blood traces that match her husband's." The words landed like a punch. "You think Sarah buried it there?" "That's what we're trying to determine," she said. "Tell me again about what you saw last night." I described the shadowed figure, the digging, the jacket, every detail I could recall. When I finished, Harlow leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "That matches another report," she said. "Old man Jenkins, 2 streets over, saw someone matching that description near the old lumber mill last week. Same truck you mentioned, dark blue Ford." "So it wasn't Sarah," I said. Harlow's eyes flicked up. "No, I don't think it was." She lowered her voice. "Rick Miller was in deep trouble before he died. He'd been selling stolen construction equipment from the mill, small pieces, but enough to make enemies. We found text messages on his phone arranging a meet up the night he was killed." I frowned. "You think whoever he was dealing with came to the house? Maybe, or maybe someone who wanted to make it look that way." Her words sent a chill through me. "Wait," I said slowly. "You mean someone could have staged the scene?" She nodded once. "The angle of the wound doesn't fit with a random struggle. It's clean, controlled. Someone who knew what they were doing." I felt sick, but who? Before I could finish, there was another knock at the door. Deputy Hall stood there, breathing hard, radio clipped to his shoulder. "Detective, we got something. Found fresh tire tracks behind the Miller place. They lead into the woods." Harlow straightened. "Let's go." We drove to the edge of town where the dirt road curved into the forest. Morning mist clung to the trees and the tire tracks glistened in the mud. A few yards in, we saw the blue Ford truck, half hidden under pine branches. The driver's door was open. Inside, the smell of gasoline and blood hit like a wall. A man slumped over the wheel, motionless, a gun in his hand. Detective Harlow moved closer, her flashlight cutting through the haze. "He's dead," she said softly. "Gunshot to the temple." "Do you know who he is?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded grimly. "Mitch Carter, used to work with Rick at the mill, got fired 6 months ago." She opened the glove box and out slid a stack of envelopes, cash, tools, receipts, and a folded piece of paper. She picked it up carefully and read aloud, "Rick, I need my cut. You double. Cross me again. I'll make sure you pay for it one way or another." My stomach turned. So he killed Rick. "Looks that way," she said. And when he realized the town was closing in, he took himself out. But as she examined the gun, her brow furrowed, except she turned it over. There's no gunpowder residue on his hands. She looked at me sharply. Someone staged this too. By that afternoon, the whole town was buzzing again. The supposed suicide of Mitch Carter made the local radio. Everyone assumed the case was closed. Everyone except Detective Harlow. That evening, she came back to my house with a small paper bag. I went through Sarah Miller's statement again. She said, "Something didn't fit." She said she left the kitchen for 30 seconds before finding Rick dead, but there was blood spatter on her back. That means she was near him when he was struck. I swallowed hard. "You think she did it?" "I think she wanted us to think she didn't," Harlow replied. She had motive years of abuse, financial ruin, and a husband about to drag her into a criminal investigation. She set the bag on my counter and pulled out a small object, a bottle of lighter fluid. "Guess where I found this?" she said. "Behind your fence, near the bracelet. Fresh prints. Sarah's." I stared at it, realization dawning. She came back that night. She was trying to destroy evidence. Exactly, Harlow said. "And she didn't count on you seeing her shadow." It all fit: the scream, the blood, the buried bracelet, the digging figure. Sarah hadn't been a terrified widow. She'd been covering her tracks. She must have lured Mitch out. I said slowly, "Used him as a scapegoat." Harlow nodded. "We found his fingerprints on the bat, but underneath them were hers. Partial prints, wiped clean, enough for the lab to match." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The town outside was quiet again, like nothing had happened. Then Harlow exhaled. "She's in custody now. Confessed an hour ago. Said she hit Rick after he tried to attack her. Panicked and staged the whole thing. When Mitch found out, she killed him too, made it look like suicide." I sank into a chair, shaking. "My God." Harlow gave a small, weary smile. "Sometimes justice doesn't look neat, but it's still justice." A week later, the Miller house stood empty. Yellow tape flapped in the autumn breeze, and the laughter of children had vanished from our street. Ethan asked me once if Tommy would ever come back. I told him maybe someday, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Detective Harlow stopped by before leaving town. She stood by the fence where everything began, watching the morning sun cut through the mist. "Funny thing about fences," she said. "People build them to keep others out, but sometimes they just keep the truth from getting out sooner." She smiled faintly, tipped her head, and walked away down the quiet street. I stood there long after she was gone, listening to the wind rustle through the trees, wondering how something so ordinary, a fight between children, could lead to so much ruin. In Pine Hollow, the fences were still standing. But we all knew now what could hide behind them. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.